It's over. Vengeance has finished. But what was good? What was bad? And what was damn right ugly? Hey, it's Dan, and welcome to Unified Gaming. So in this one, we are going to review the Vengeance Test Campaign 2 on PC EU, talking about the good bits, the bad bits, and just what is absolutely ugly and needs changing. As with the test itself, this was aimed at trying to reduce the lag in Cyrodiil to give you those large scale fights that you had back in the day. Was it successful? Yes or no? We're going to go through all of that stuff and really talk about my experience with it as a content creator and also a PvP enthusiast, and really kind of give you the key takeaways. That said, you might agree or disagree, which is absolutely fine, so let me know in the comments below what you think. And as always, if you like what I do with the videos and you want to stay up to date with the builds and guides and much more, then do subscribe. I also want to say a massive thanks to all the YouTube and Patreon members who do support the content. If you like what I do here, then do consider supporting. You get exclusive builds, early access to the videos, and so much more. There's details down below. As with the Vengeance campaign and with this video, I'm going to go through all the stuff I said before, but we'll just showcase just some random gameplay in the background of just highlights from what I was doing. With the campaign itself, just a really quick summary, you focused on having a limited set of skills, so your class skills plus a few weapon skills, with no morphs, no scribing or subclassing in this time, and you had a flat set of stats. You can't change your attributes, you can't change your munders, and your race makes no difference. There was also no champion points. If you want to see more of the changes, I have many videos on the channel already, so do check that out, but that was the TLDR. With that said, there were some really good things this time round, so we're going to go through every single one now. In my experience, one of the big changes I really like as a PvP player and content creator is they got rid of battle spirit. Now this is incredibly controversial, and I know lots of other creators might hate me for this, but I think this is one of the best changes they have made in a very long time. And hear me out. Battle Spirit is a system that essentially is designed to go, how do we stop people dying too quickly in PvP? That is its aim. How do we stop people healing too quickly? That is the aim. And so it's trying to find a way to increase people's time to live rather than time to die. And I used to play games like Path of Exile and Path of Exile 2, and they're the same problem here. And there's many ways you can do this. With Battle Spirit, it does it as a percent reduction. So they reduce the damage taken, but they reduce the damage dealt. They also reduce the healing dealt. So what this ends up happening is you get this really weird situation where the target in PvP normally has 30 to 35,000 health on PC EU. Most people sit around 35k health, with 50% damage reduction. If you took that 50% damage reduction away, well, people are going to melt really fast. So what they've done is they've just doubled their health. They've literally given it a 50% boost. So what ends up happening is people have 70k health or thereabouts, which is really cool, but you have full damage. So the damage you see on your tooltip is the damage you actually do, and that's really good because it makes it easy to understand PvP. As someone who explains PvP builds to people, trust me, trying to explain to them that, yes, your tooltip is different. Yes, you hit significantly less. Why is that? It's because of Battle Spirit. People don't often understand that you might have a 25,000 spec bow, but that's only hitting somebody for 10k, maybe 11k with a crit. Why is it so much lower? And it's because of this Battle Spirit. Whereas in the campaign, when you actually see your tooltip, you're going to do around that damage, if not slightly more. So that was really nice to help understand, make it easier to understand. It's also good from a kind of PvE to PvP perspective that anybody new to the game, whether they come from PvE already or they're a new player, it's understandable. There's no kind of smoke and mirrors, there's no confusion. So for that reason, I really hope they apply that change to all of the PvP, Cyrodiil, Battlegrounds, Imperial City. As a blanket, this is how we now do this. Give everybody a flat HP buff, and then your skills don't get reduced. Your damage doesn't get reduced. Your healing doesn't get reduced, because it will balance itself out. Why do you need a 50% health reduction if you've got 50% more health that you have to actually heal? So they can find a balance where it might be give them an extra 25,000 or an extra 30,000 health as a blanket, the worst we get in PvP, plus whatever you have on your base attributes. And that way you can have like really high health, but you can take huge damage or vice versa. And it always makes HP stacking skills more effective. So there's like pros and cons to it. Moving on though, I'm going to go to kind of another good change, and this can sound really harsh. If you're from like Zos or ZeniMax Online, I do apologise, but ZeniMax in my experience aren't known to be overtly generous. They like to charge you and charge you and charge you, if that is gold or time or just actual crowns and money. And this time round, they've actually done something which I think is really smart. They've made all the siege free and all the potions free. So all your consumables, your like gold material cost and time cost to get ready for PvP has taken away. You can just use the siege straight away. You can use the potion straight away. There's no decision to go, should I use this potion now because I can't afford to buy new ones in this fight or not? Whereas now you can just use them as you actually need them. And I really like that change. I hope they bring kind of a similar sort of system going forward and have it as a kind of like crown supplies or like Cyrodiil supplies from your alliance. And the idea is that when you go into Cyrodiil, the first reward of the worthy box gives you a crown crate that gives you like 50 tri-potions that are bound to that account. They can't be traded and they only work in PvP zones. So that way you kind of get that like, incentive to PvP. You get your free, here's your stockpile. But then once you use it up and you want to keep fighting, you need to buy it. And there's that nice middle ground where it makes it easy for people to get into PvP. Because they get these free potions as a small like, buffer to get them going. And then if they really like it, they can buy more of it with the AP that they'll earn in that first 50 potions worth of playtime. And you can always make it like they're stacked to 200 and then that's it, you can't have more than one stack. They can find ways around this. So I really think that something there could be really worth exploring. Talking of the barrier to entry, I also think the barrier to entry is significantly better for people who have jobs. Like, I know this sounds really harsh. I work full-time as a special needs teacher. I have a family. I've got a young child. I have a wife. I am a busy, busy person. You know, you imagine doing all that stuff and making videos and playing a computer game. There isn't much time to actually play and farm sets and to make builds. And by making the skills and the sets more limited, it's easier to get into the game. It's easier to actually fight. Now, I do think they've probably gone a bit too far in some instances, which I'll touch upon in the bad and the ugly part. But the actual barrier to entry into, can I just get into PvP and play the game, is way more accessible. And I really hope they kind of find a middle ground with this. As a newer player, this would be fantastic. You can try a class out and go, I want to be an Arcanist. Is it any good in PvP? Make a new character, give it a go. It might not be for you. And you know that without having to level up a character to 50, then to 160 CP, then to get forward gears, then all the passives, and you get the idea. It becomes quite intensive to try a new playstyle, whereas this, you could just change a few skills and you're ready to go. So I really like that idea. Performance-wise is a lot better. The performance, in my opinion, was significantly better than usual. I'm gonna say though it's not perfect. You know, a lot of people are gonna hate me in the comments. Go, you know, Dan, it's terrible. I did have lag. I'm not gonna lie. On the Dragon Knight clip, it was really laggy, like almost unplayable. I ended up logging off because it wasn't worth recording that at that point. But out of 7 characters, and I only had about an hour of lag. You know, I've been playing this for like days now. I think that's pretty good going. There's always going to be spikes here or there, and if you look at the context of when it was lagging, there was 3 alliances fighting for 1 scroll in 1 keep. So there was about probably 200-300 people in this one place fighting, and it just caused lag. So I think that was obviously the issue, personally, because I haven't had it since. But the performance on the whole was just way better. My skills worked in big fights. They worked in 1vx, which I was doing fine. So, you know, there's much more choices there with like how they could go with the performance. They could make the map smaller, they could make it bigger. But from a performance perspective, I think it hit the money here. It was really, really good. The other thing that I think is quite interesting, and I had quite a good chat on stream with some different like people in the community, so like Sayim, Tainted Lich, etc., about how do passives work. And I really like that they've got rid of the passives in PvP. This sounds really stupid and really controversial, but passives, in all honesty, just by the nature of the word passive, means it's always active, it's always there. Now in PvP, anybody who's made a PvP build often will skimp on passives. I've done this many, many times when I'm trying to get a build video out because I don't have the skill points and I can't be bothered to farm them, or I don't have the time to farm them. And what ends up happening is you end up putting your build out at a disadvantage. You are weaker than you should be because you don't have this passive benefit that should be always on. That is kind of essentially what it is. And removing all those passive effects, just go, you always have this stuff on, it's just built into your skills, makes much more sense. I think there should be a bit of a middle ground with this. And my suggestion for Zos would be make passives that are linked to the class. So rather than having passives in like Assassination, if you're on a Nightblade, Shadow and Siphoning, you could just have Nightblade passives. And you might have gain bonus critical strike damage when attacking from the flank. Or it could be increased critical strike damage at all times by 10%. It could be increase movement speed by 15%. And you just have 3 or 4 just passives to go, what is the Nightblade playstyle? It's fast, it hits hard, it crits a lot. That's sort of like the Nightblade, really. That's its job. You go, what is the Sorcerer's job? To hit hard with elemental magics, to move quick with teleports, and to have sustain. It's meant to be a caster, so it needs to have good sustain and good hard hitting. But it's squishy. If you go to a Dragon Knight, that's your tanky, fiery melee build. So it wants to have damage over time bonuses, or like snares. It wants to have resistances in melee range, or like range extra physical spell resist or physical resist, to give it that. It's bulkier than a sorcerer because it's a melee class. Same with Templar, they're melee classes. So you could give them passives that kind of go, what is this class identity? And put 3 or 4 passives into that kind of theme, and then you got more diversity with the classes. And if they really wanted, they could put them into the skill lines to go, what is the assassination focus? Killing people, what is the shadow focus? Escaping, so movement speed. What is the siphoning? It's all about health, siphoning health. So maybe they get a sustain bonus. Maybe they get like a health recovery bonus there. They could play around with this. But I think the passives removal generally is better. They just need to tweak it slightly. And weapon passives, they're not needed, in all honesty. You should have them on at all times. Talking of that, we also have CP. It's the same story here. In the CP, you have choices currently, but in all honesty, as we said in CP like version 1, CP version 2, people are going to run the most optimal stuff. I can say the CP loadout that will be on almost every single build. You'd have Master at Arms, Deadly Aim, Ironclad, and then you'd have the critical one. It might be Backstab, or it might be the 8% one. That is your blue CP for most PvP builds, in all honesty. It very rarely changes. You may change Ironclad for Focus Mending instead. What I'm getting at is the choices people have for CP is very limited. Yes, we have the illusion of choice, but it's not massive. And removing it just makes it easier to play, because again, you have all this buff active. So it makes it easier to balance PvP wise. There's less variables to control. So I think having a simplified version where maybe you just have 6 slottables you can pick from in the blue, and you can only have 2 on at once, might be a good middle ground with this. Maybe you have max resource, maybe you have single target, maybe you have crit. And then you have like a healing and a damage reduction one and a block one. That could be your blue CP. You could pick 2 of these to make your build. But some kind of simplified version without all this spidery diagram stuff, which is confusing for newer players. So that's what I'd recommend there. Get rid of all the yellow ones. Like, they should always be on anyway. So you just punish people who don't have that. As with the skill changes, and again, I think this is a really good change, some of the changes were fantastic. As a PvP player, I was actually generally impressed with some of the thought behind the skills and how they actually function and mechanically work with one another. There was very clear thinking behind this, that these are how they could be comboed, or this is how this could be used together. And it was really seen in the skill choices. The Destruction Ultimate is a great example of this. Most magic classes did not have a burst ult. The Destro ult was that. It was a AoE delayed burst ult, which you needed. So on my Necromancer, I was using it, and I was having really good success with it. It was dirt cheap, 85 ult, it hit very hard, but there was a trade-off. It had 2 seconds to charge. So you had to really use this tactfully. And I really like that change because it gave different options, and it also made it feel more like damage over time ults, and like pet ults were just a bit weird. They don't really work in PvP. And they'll focus more on a kind of burstier playstyle, which I prefer. So I think that was a really nice change, and they did this with the Arcanist Beam. Again, reducing those small ticks to have just big hits. That's what gets kills in PvP, and all of the skills that I saw had this kind of mentality applied, and I hope they bring these changes to the live server. Most notably, the Arcanist Beam change and the Warden Bear change. The Arcanist Beam on live ticks every 0.3 seconds, so you get 3 ticks per second. In PvE, that is absolutely fine, because it might say tick for 3,000, 3,000, 3,000. In 1 second, it's 9,000 damage. Fantastic. With 3 Crux, it doubles the damage, 18,000 damage. Fantastic. In PvP, what often happens is it ticks on tick 1 for the 3,000 damage with the extra Crux, 6,000 damage. Not terrible, but not great. And then the person rolls out of the way. So ticks 2 and 3 in that 1 second window just miss. What they did this time round, however, is make it that when you use this, it actually ticks once a second, and it ticks at full damage on your cast. So what that means is, if you have your 3 Crux and you use this skill, as soon as it hits them, it's that big hit, that 19k. It's huge of damage. Massive, massive damage. And what this actually means then, in reality, is that this is now a burst ult, or burst skill. Arcanists didn't have one of these. This change alone makes it much more viable for PvP, because you can stun somebody and then go straight for a beam, cast a beam, and then stop channeling it, and then go back into your spammables, and use it like Merciless Resolve. It does exactly the same then as its functionality. And that's a really good change. So I hope they bring that change to PvP and just make one of the morphs do something like stack the damage or combine the damage to have large chunks, whereas every 1 second it does bush. And it's literally just 3 times the damage but once a second. That way you get that big burst hit if you want, or you can have the small damage over time, dot, 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 with the shield. And you can find a balance for that. They also did this with the Ward and Bear. The Ward and Bear in PvP is absolute garbage, so do not run this. But in this mode it is fantastic. I was using it and it hits all of the time. It was like Celine's coming out the ground. So I call the bear, it comes out, does its job, and it goes away. I don't need it to body block. I don't need it to get in the way. I need it to do damage. That's its job. And with it doing damage and being an execute, it was really, really, really good. The execute scaling I think should be 50%, like all executes. That should just be a staple going forward. It's simpler to use. But I think being able to activate it and it pops out the ground to hit somebody is a really good option, and they should be more for that in like the whole game personally for PvP. Fantastic. 2 other skills that I kind of thought was quite nice was the change of the pets. The skeletal mage, rather than just running around and trying to hope it hits somebody, it applies a dot to somebody, so you cast it, it pops up behind them and hits them with a dot. It always hits. And same with the familiar, similar idea. You don't need the familiar to run around and use the AI, which is terrible in PvP, it really is. At least this way it's reliable, and I think those kind of changes where they just remove those variability of that kind of, is your skill actually going to work or not, and actually make it more viable. And so I hope they keep some of these kind of changes going forward where they are now kind of useful. You know, pets are now worth running because it's now a dot, or it's now a burst skill. It's just not something that's going to miss all of the time. Talking of kind of just skills generally again, and just dots. Dots were way more viable in this mode than they've ever been in my experience. A dot build currently on the live server, not in this mode, needs Master Lock, it needs proc sets to make this work. In this mode, taking the 20-second dot damage and we're condensing it into 5 seconds means every tick hits really hard. Now, is 1 dot going to kill you? No, it's not going to kill you. If 3 dots going to kill you, it's going to do a lot of damage. If you get 5 dots on them, you rotate 5 dots, you're basically doing spammable damage every second. And adding your light attacks, which means you can make a dot build that's actually decent. And so for me, I really hope they continue this change in PvP. Have all of the dots be 5, maybe 10 seconds at the very, very most for PvP, so they condense their damage into a smaller window, so they're actually useful. Because currently, the 20-second dots are just terrible. Like, you cast it, they don't do enough. Even the 10-second dots don't do enough damage, and you often have to stack 6 or 7 to actually be viable. Whereas in this mode, you can stack 2 or 3, and it was really making a difference. If you went over 3 or 4, you were like really noticing that this is really punishing somebody. And as such, dot builds were viable. Were they the best build? No, but they were viable, and that's what we were asking for. So I really hope they do this kind of change with the dots. Just any damage over time, condense it down, make them do bigger ticks. And then if you want to stack them, you can, but then there's a bit of a skill play with it, that you go, I've got to rotate my dots, so there's actual rotation now, like you do with your burst skill, like Deep Fissure with Force Pulse, or Deep Fissure with Arterial Burst, or Blast Bones with Dizzy and Swing. There's a bit of a combination that you're having to rotate these. You can't just keep spamming it, so there's a bit of skill. And I really hope they do that. The last 2 things which I thought was quite good were the 1v1s. When you did a 1v1 with a player, it was really dependent on who's better. There was some like class imbalance, I'm not going to lie, but generally it was focused on who is the better player and who has more skill rather than gear. In lots of the cases, and you do a 1v1 in Cyrodiil on live, it comes down to who has the better sets on, or are the sets doing the work for them. So like Master Lock dot builds, horrible to fight against. They are really, really strong for 1v1s. Are they good for 1vx? No. And on the live server, that's kind of what you currently see, that some people are really built for one thing, did it incredibly well, and then it's actually the sets doing the work for them. Whereas in this mode, it came down to, did you use the skills properly? Did you combo correctly? Were you able to stack the dots and rotate them properly? Could you rotate your heals properly? And there's a much higher skill ceiling because of that. Those who know how to PvP did really well, they could fight outnumbered. I've been doing it on stream, absolutely fine. Those who didn't found it much harder. So I really like that option. As with the bad stuff, there's a few things that I kind of want to touch upon. Some of the bad things, and this is kind of like, it's bad. It's not terrible. It's just like, oh, it's a bit of an own goal here. Like, oh, come on, guys. Like, really? Is the class balance. Some of the classes are clearly stronger than others for certain things. That is kind of, maybe that's by design. Maybe that is not intentional. But whatever they do, they need to make it clear. If they go, going forward in PvP, the Nightblade is your burst like class. It is designed to kill people the quickest. It has the quickest kill, like time to kill, than any class in the game. Completely fine if they do that and they say that, but they haven't said that. At the moment, it's play the way that you want, which is their mantra, the one Tamriel. But the classes don't allow that. Dragon Knight really struggles in a 1v1 with its current kit. Is it possible? Yes. But a 1v1 between a Dragon Knight and a Nightblade, the Nightblade is going to have an easier time to kill that Dragon Knight because of their kit. Their kit is just better. And so I just think that maybe some kind of review of the classes and to go, what do we want? If we want this difference, absolutely fine. Rock, paper, scissors works very well in lots of MMOs. You know, you could argue that the Dragon Knight should be able to be really good at killing magical classes because it's fire and melee and stuff. But maybe you go, actually, no, this is just meant to be a group class. That's fine too, but make it clear. At the moment, some of the classes just feel a bit, Arcanist great, Nightblade great, Sorcerer great, Necro, okay, not terrible, but it's okay. Warden, decent. But when you come to like Templar, you come to Dragon Knight, they're a bit like, what are their jobs? Are they just support classes or not? So I just think whatever they do, make it clear, communicate with the players. The Templar is a support class, this is its job, and that's fine. If they don't do that, I think people are going to have more backlash with this because it just makes it harder to understand what you're trying to do. One of the things that's also a bit bad is the gameplay was a little simplified, in my opinion. You obviously had the limited build options, which made it a bit more simplified, and you also had less combos than you currently do. And that's mainly because of the duration of skills and also some of the way in which you can heavy attack and stuff. There was no off balance. So trying to like do combos where you do like deep fissure, so into dizzying swing with a medium weave into an execute, that didn't exist because you didn't have that off balance done. And those kind of like simplified things just made it more spammy. So you're just spamming dizzying swing without the stun. And I know I'm saying like dizzying swing, the normal skill, but you get what I mean, the uppercut skill, that because of these all little things that kind of make the combat more fluid and more dynamic were missing, it just made it a little bit simpler than it ought to be. It was basically burst skill, spam, 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 execute. Or burst skill, spam, 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 burst skill, spam, 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 execute. And that was the kind of playstyle, maybe an ult in the middle. And I think having a bit more like, yes, you can chuck in a stun, yes, you can get an off balance, yes, you can get a snare, some kind of just, there's more mechanics going on, I think would be quite nice. Another bad thing which I personally didn't like, but maybe other players would disagree, is there didn't seem to be an easy counter to ball groups or large fights. So by that I mean large fights you use siege, but it was really hard to make a bomber build. So trying to make a bomber to go in and just kill 6-7 people really fast is not possible. Your AoEs hit 3 people. Your proxy debt, yes, it scales with damage, which is great, but it has a cap again. And all these kind of things makes it really hard to go, can I get a bomber out of this? Now, yes, you could argue that you could synergize 3 Destro ults and go 3, 2, 1, fire, anybody in the middle dies. That's an option, completely valid, yeah? But you can't do it by yourself. You can't do it in a duo. And because of that, it makes it really hard to counter ball groups who are moving often. They've got group AoE buffs, they've got group movement buffs, they've got cross healing, and so it makes it really, really hard. So it's kind of like, oh, this is a bit, you've done it so well on the live server, like to make bombers and gank builds and stuff much more viable, to pick off healers and stuff. Just not quite there yet. And then we get into the final part of the video, which is the ugly. Obviously, if you are still watching, I'm saying just a massive thanks. I know this has been a lot of Dan talking with some gameplay, but I just wanted to get my thoughts out there, and I hope people appreciate this. And also, if Zos watched this, it gives you some ideas. But the ugly parts, the things that I just think are absolutely, they're just terrible. Like, it's really, really bad. Like, come on, this is what you need to fix ASAP. One of the big things, and we're all going to say, is the lack of choice. You know, from a PvP content creator, It is too restrictive. Is it simple to understand? Yes, great. Is it easy to access the mode? Yes, great. But it's too restrictive. There's not enough choices to make your build. And I personally think they should add a bit more like variability with this. Even they just let you do the attributes. If you made it where your armors don't matter, but the weight does. So you can have your armor weight does, or your armor trait does, or even just armor traits. Do armor traits, attributes, glyphs. Those three things will give you a lot of choice, because you can go, okay, and Munderstone. You go, well, Munderstone, actually not Munders, regen. I could go 3 regen on my glyphs. I've got loads of sustain on my build now that I don't normally have. Great, fantastic. Always on. Yeah, you don't have to check if they've got food active, it's always active. The traits, always active. So those kind of things you could probably do, and it gives people much more choice. Do they have the same sets? We don't need sets necessarily if you do this. So I think this might be a good middle ground where you give people some choice within a small set of parameters. And I think that's what is missing. It's kind of there, it's a well-rounded experience. It just lacks that kind of ESO Elder Scrolls feel of I am who I am, I want to play how I want to play. You don't quite have that yet because it's so restrictive. So for me, I just really hope they kind of do that with some of the attributes and just give you a bit more control over the attributes of what your character is, the stats. As with the morphs, we're all going to say we need more morphs, I know that, but I'm also fully aware that this mode works because of the lack of choices. So if you add a morph for every single skill, you then, exponentially increase the amount of calculations. I fully see that. I hope that maybe what they do instead is add in some weld skills next. So they're adding things like fighter skilled, major skilled. You then also have things in there such as Sigil Order, soul magic. And these things would then be going, well, what are we missing in PvP? We're missing a movement skill, Sigil Order. We're missing a ranged execute. Maybe soul magic. Maybe that could have, maybe it needs a range ult. We could have soul assault. You can find what is missing from most builds and just put those into those weld skills, those guild skills. Gives people choices. I'd also hope they add in werewolf and vampire. As somebody who likes to use a nightblade and go around as stealth and stuff, it's really fun. When you sneak and you move like a snail, it's not that fun. So please add the vampire in some capacity with the sneak reduction. Will be just a personal hope. I hope they really do that, but just having those kind of just choices again would be really nice. One thing I think is really, really bad, and I know Zos have talked about this before in the past, is range versus melee. There's always a bit of a choice between this. You need to have it where melee is better up front in melee range, obviously, but range can't be so oppressive that there's no man land in the middle. And it did feel a little bit like that at times where if you're in a range build, you could do so much damage to somebody at range that by the time they get to you, they are having to heal and stay alive rather than do damage. And a really good example of this was my Nightblade Sniper bow build. So I was using the snipe with the Merciless Resolve, and I had about 30k burst, and I could do this every 5 seconds. So it meant anybody that came up to fight me, I could just go bang bang with a light attack in the middle. And that's like a third, if not almost 40% of the health gone instantly before they even get anywhere near me. And so it did make it much more oppressive. Yes, they could dodge roll it, and good players would do that, but not everybody is that good. Not everybody will go, oh, there's a snipe coming, I better move out of the way. And so it just made it a bit awkward. And when you're then adding in 1vx and you've got people hitting you with overload and spec bow and snipes, and they're hitting you really hard as a melee spammable, you're in this really weird dilemma where actually I might as well just play a range build. And that's what I ended up doing on my Nightblade. I was like, why am I using melee? I could use a bow, I get more damage. I've got range. This is a no-brainer, and it's cheaper. What am I doing? And that's what I would recommend they look at. Finding that balance between range and melee. There wasn't a benefit in melee, in my opinion. And so it wasn't really worth it beyond some of the skills, and that was about it. One thing I really disliked was the lack of movement skills. There wasn't any real movement skill that was affordable for all classes. So Nightblade, fantastic movement skill because it had access to sprint. You could use the twisting path, movement speed, run away. You had cloak, get away. If you're on a sorcerer, you had streak, get away. If you were an arcanist, you had apothecary gate, get away. If you're a warden, wings, get away. Everybody else were like snails. You couldn't move. It was really slow, really tedious. PvP is fun when it's quick, it's fast-paced, it's dynamic. And if you don't have that speed, you don't feel that kind of, oh, I'm moving quick, I'm actually in, out, weaving, ducking, dodging. You don't feel that, and it makes it a bit dull. And so for me, I just want some more movement skill speed options. I'd also suggest that also from a 1vx player, you need the speed, you need to be able to get around. Without that, you can't 1vx easily, it's much harder. So that's also kind of why I want it to. There's two things that are left. They kind of linked, in all honesty, is that ball groups are still way too oppressive. And it also comes down to like cross healing. Ball groups are significantly stronger than any other group dynamic because you've got group buffs and they're coordinated. That's always going to happen. If you give everybody the same tools, 4 people use the same tools well together, they're going to beat that one person. It's always going to happen. There's no getting around that. Yeah. The big problem you have is cross healing is still very, very, very strong. If you've got, say, a 4 or 5 man group, yeah, so a very small group, but they all have radiating regions, they all have AoE heals. What ends up happening is they could just spam heals and put heal over times on everybody. Nobody dies. And that was happening quite a lot. I saw, like, when I was going into bigger fights, I could have like 6 or 7 heal over times on me as just a random player walking in there, which then means I'm getting, you know, 4,000 or 5,000 from each heal 6 or 7 times within 2 seconds. It makes you really, really tanky, way tankier than you should be. And so I think they need to find a solution to this. I would personally suggest that when you get hit with a heal over time, it calculates how much of the total heal is left and then gives you that. So for example, say you have a heal over time that's 15,000, 3,000 every second, if it's 5 seconds. You've got 2 seconds left, you've got 6,000 worth of heal, someone heals you, hit you with a new one, well, that's got the full duration, and it's also got the more than 6,000, it gives you the new one. If you get hit with a small heal over time, that's say 2,000 total healing, well, you're going to keep your 6,000 because that's still higher. Find some way to go, for it to go, this is the heal it prioritizes, this is the heal it doesn't, because the one that it prioritizes is still worth more than the one that isn't. Because you need to find that balance, and I fully get that. Or you make it where you can only have 2 of the same heal on you at once. That's an easy solution. So it just has a cap. Talking of healing and just kind of things generally, one thing I did find a little bit awkward with like the healing in particular is that when you are healing, some of the targeting is really clunky. Like, as a solo single player, when I'm playing outnumbered and I've got other people near me and I push a burst heal, I want it to heal me. I do not care about Jack over there or little Billy. I want the heal, I want to stay alive. And what ended up happening often is I will push the heal and it chucks it onto the person in the far distance who's looking at a tree, swinging a sword, like what's he doing? And then he gets a heal, he doesn't do anything, he dies. I'm then really low on resource because I've paid for a heal that I didn't get. And I'm having to move around, and I actually need the healing in the first place. And so it's just really frustrating. So I really hope they have like a choice where it could be an option where you have smart healing on or off. Just literally make it a toggle. Because as a solo player, I don't want the healing to be on my teammates. I want it to be on me only. Or you make the where it pings to somebody and it sticks to them when they're in your like reticle much tighter. So you have to directly look at them or thereabouts with like maybe a 5% or 10% margin, rather than this massive margin where you can look anywhere near there in their vicinity and you will heal them. So I think some kind of thing where that would really, really help. That's just a bit like a personal peeve. It's frustrating. Like, it is frustrating. But yeah, that's kind of what I think of the campaign. I appreciate this has been a very long ranty video with some good stuff, some bad stuff, and some just ugly stuff. But I really hope you kind of find this useful. And this is more aimed at Zos, in all honesty, to just go, this is what creators think. Now, I am but one creator. There are other people out there, so I would check what do other people say about this mode. And for me personally, you know, I want to end it on a positive. I would like to see this again. I like this mode. It is quite fun. Is it rough around the edges? 100%. But is it something that they can build upon to get a good product? I do think so. And for that, I am excited about the direction of PvP going forward, particularly with the bigger focus on damage in smaller windows of time, more burst, more focus on big hits. That's really fun and satisfying. It's really rewarding when you hit somebody and you melt them. Really, really love that. So I really hope they continue this kind of playstyle, develop on it, iterate on it more. And if you're at Zos and you want to kind of, you know, ask questions and stuff, all my details are down below. I'm more than happy to chat. And same with you. If you're watching this still and you go, I want to just sort of talk about it and so on, I've got Discord, message you in there, and I'll get back to you as quick as I can. But I'm going to wrap it up here, so I'm going to just say again, massive thanks for the likes, the comments, and the subs. It really helps the channel out. And if you want to support the channel to keep growing and so on, then there is a YouTube membership or a Patreon membership. You get exclusive access to builds and guides, the videos you get to see early, and much, much more. There's details down below. But as always, thanks for watching. Take care. Bye!